Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday Scoreboard here on Heart of Ohio Sports. We are live inside Studio Squared here in downtown Tiffin. Nate Mullins, we got the wizard Greg Kinn on the ones and twos, keeping us live on the air. And to my left, let's start all the way to the left, Tiffin University's own Russell Snyder joining us on the program this morning.
What's up, Nate?
Hey, how we doing, Russ?
I'm all right, man. Busy day today with Tiffin University Athletics, but happy to come in and chat some football and TU sports with y'all.
Well, I appreciate you carving us out a nice little section of your schedule today.
My schedule's a little busy, and it does need carving when you got to get more into it, that's for sure.
And then right to my left, we have Zach Baker, sports editor at the Findlay Courier. I literally almost caught myself saying Advertiser Tribune. I've said it so many times.
Force of
It's
habit,
really
man.
hard not to say that.
It was a long time. That was a long time I was in Tiffin,
Yeah.
Hey, Russ, you want to drop your microphone down just a little bit? It's hiding your beautiful face there, man.
All right. Well,
He's not used to having the camera on him. most of
right,
the
yeah,
time.
I'm used to being behind the camera. That's for darn sure. That's for sure.
So, all right, guys, we had a busy night last night. Right. So we had two different crews out covering two different games. Both Tiffin teams were covered by Heart of Ohio Sports. We had a crew at the Calvert game, a little bit of a not exactly the outcome that they were hoping for, obviously, but when you're facing a team like Lima Central Catholic, that's a perennial, and they're a buzzsaw when it comes to playoff time. I mean, they chew up and spit out opponents usually around this time of year, and it's just a shame that Calvert had to be their first victim this year.
Well, that Calvert would have had to play their absolute most perfect game of the year.
Yes.
They're going to need a lot of help as far as turnovers, maybe get something on the special teams or the defensive side of the football. But like you said, basically that was just a bad draw for Calvert. With the expanded playoffs now that they have in football, you're going to get a lot of these matchups that seem to be big mismatches when you look at them on paper. Although I did think I saw last night that a 3-7 team that got in beat a 10-0 team of one of the levels. So you're going to have that occasionally, but more times than not, your schools like a Lima Central Catholic are going to get the job done, at least in the early rounds.
Okay, all right. So when you talk about this Calvert team, you look at this team, there was only 7 seniors that played significant time for this team this year. They're a young team. It looks like they're building something. They had a lot of success this year compared to the year before, but they've still got another level to take this to, I think. And I feel like with young Harry Schultz becoming a senior next year, you've got a lot of other guys, Jacob Rumback becoming a senior. You've got some guys that have been through a lot with this program that are getting ready to step into those leadership roles, which most of them have already been in those roles.
Yeah.
When you talk about this team, the program, just the tradition that is Calvert, I feel like this is just the stepping stone. This year is a great stepping stone for this group to take them to that next level, because you look at this team, like I said, on paper, they got a lot of talent. They're just young.
Well, Coach Reeser, I know, is a big fan of his young quarterback, and that's one of the problems when you're playing in that small school level. It's very seldom that you're not young. You know what I mean? Even if you have a good senior class, you're still going to be playing a lot of freshmen, sophomores, junior. You hope to not have to play many freshmen, but sometimes numbers just make it a necessity to play those young kids. But you're absolutely right, though. I mean, when you get a quarterback who comes in and Schultz on his second year starting, I believe, and he's still coming back next year. So that experience is, you can't make anything up on that. That's just amazing. And when you got a quarterback coming into his senior year this year, he's hungry after the year he had. It's about the work he puts in between now and August, really. Yeah. Whether he can make that next step forward.
And they've got some seniors that have played significant minutes for this team that they're going to have some big shoes to fill. Zach, I'm sure you've covered this team for many years. You know all about the tradition that is Tiffin Calvert. But guys like, Lee Morgan, Gage Herring, there's a ton of other guys. Will Kurtz stands out to me. They had a lot of leadership on this senior group, but it was a small senior group. What's your thoughts on this Calvert team as we move forward?
Well, I think that, when you look at what they did in the improvement, that's always a good sign moving forward. I think that the one thing with Calvert is, when you look at this conference and how difficult it is sometimes to make a move in it, because, Hopewell is there as strong as it is. And so,
you got Gibsonburg, you got Margaretta. Right. I mean, every year these teams are good.
Every year those teams are good. And so you're competing against, that's one thing when you're getting old, when you get a little bit more experience, that's one thing. I think the positive there is that, you have a lot of experience, and that experience is good and continuing to grow.
Yes.
I remember one time, and I can't remember who it was, but I said, "Isn't it great that you're bringing this many veterans back?" And the coach was like, Well, not really, because those veterans played last year and we were 2-8. So I mean, it was kind of like that. But Calvert has made a habit out of being a very, very tough team, and that goes back. You talk about the tradition, and it seemed like for so many years, it was like it didn't matter what the record was. If Calvert got in, you always felt like they had a chance to go someplace, and I think that's kind of what they're. You always feel good in that first round. As you said, this was a really tough draw. I mean, Lima Central Catholic, that's going to be a tough draw for anybody.
Yeah.
At any time, the rest of this region and beyond.
Well, that region is really tough this year, Zach. Like I looked through that region at 26 region. I mean, even Division 7 as a whole is a lot tougher this year than it has been.
Well, you got, and the top seed is Macomb. Macomb beat Eden 57-3 last night. So there is a. Yeah, and so you go down that, like you mentioned, you go down that region. I mean, next week, Macomb's got Pandora Gilboa, who played them very, very tough. I mean, Pandora Gilboa is a very, very good football team.
Yes.
So it is a very, very tough region. But again, you look at teams like Macomb, Hopewell, LCC. I mean, you're right. Those top three are extremely strong and are going to make it very difficult for anybody to break through, especially when you've got to play a team like that in the first round.
Well, luckily this year, not to correct you, Zach, but Hopewell and LCC, they're in Division 6 now, Region 22.
Right.
It's hard to keep track of these schools moving up and down the way they do, because last year Hopewell was in Division 7. Now they're in Division 6 again. That's what the last time they made a deep playoff run, they were in Division 6.
Right.
So
yeah, and I think now I got it messed up because I'm thinking about last year again.
Yes.
The same thing with because those were the teams that met. Hopewell and knocked Macomb out.
Yep.
And then you forget also.
And they beat Lima Central Catholic last year as well in the playoffs.
So you're looking at that, and they're in 6, and then you've got, and you see this all throughout. I mean, these teams jumping up and jumping down. So I apologize for that. But
that's fine.
Getting confused. But
I'm angry, Zach. Thank you for your apology.
I'm happy that I got Zach on something. Like one thing I can put that in my cap. One thing for my whole career. That's it.
Yeah. Zach won't sleep for weeks now.
Oh, I think you're wrong about
He's
that.
going to run that through.
I think I'm going to wake up as all be a bad dream. No, yeah, you're right. Calvert has had one of those seasons where you feel like they're on the ascent.
Yes,
and so that's very, very good. And again, I think Steve Reeser, a guy who gets the most out of his guys and gets them to play together, and so they're always a tougher out at the end than they are at the beginning.
And I feel like this freshman class for them this year really helped to bolster the roster. Last year you talked about they had a kind of a smaller roster. I think 33, 32 kids, something around there. This year's 46 kids. That was a big boost to the roster having that incoming class. They've got another incoming outstanding 8th grade class.
I was just going to mention that the 8th grade class is very talented.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a team that, like I said, they're young, but they're building something. And I really feel like the time will tell, but this is a team that I don't think anybody's going to want to play next year.
Yeah, growing pains suck.
Yeah.
They do. Growing pains
remember
suck,
all of
but
this.
they're worth it when you become a senior and you go from a 6 or 7 win team to a 8, 9, 10 win team.
Absolutely.
And that's something you see too at every level, where when you have freshmen, you're trying to play freshmen or sophomores and compete with juniors and seniors.
It's almost boys against men at that point.
I mean, we've seen that at a couple different levels here, how difficult that can be.
Yeah. And when you got perennials that, repeatedly have these strong senior classes, it's hard to compete against that. So, we'll move on. We'll talk about the other team we covered last night, Tiffin Columbian. We were at Frost Counthouse Stadium as they dispatched the Pirates of Rocky River. Final score 41-7. I think that's what I remember.
That's what
anyway.
it was,
They got out to an early lead. They never looked back. This offense really looks like they are clicking on all cylinders. I texted Coach Judd Lutz last night. I was really impressed with one play in particular. I was like, man, I really like they ran this little wide receiver screen, but it came out of a halfback screen look where
it's in the clip.
It's one of our cuts. We're going to watch that here in just a minute. But I'm telling you, it was one of the best plays I've seen all year, and it went for a touchdown. And the creativity that you see out of this team right now, I just feel like a lot of this stuff, maybe they've just been holding on to it, waiting for this time of year to kind of dig into the bag of tricks and kind of show their true form, I guess, is what you want to say.
Well, if you're going to do that, you better hold a few back.
I guess
you
so.
can't use them all. first week. But, like you said, though, with Columbia, that's what you do when you're the higher seed. It's kind of what happened at Calvert. The higher seed went out and took care of business in both of the games that we're talking about. And you said the offense got started early, and that's what you should do. You got talented quarterback, talented skill position players, and you got a good offensive line there for Tiffin Columbia. And so you should go out there, put some points on the board, put the pressure on that lower seed who's already on the road coming to your house, already pressure because of that. They see that you're a higher seed when they look at the brackets. All the kids look at that. Yep. And then you come up, put some points on them. Now they're going to start pressing. Now they're getting out of their game plan, doing things they're not used to doing on a normal basis. And that's what a good team and a higher seed should do at this round of the playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and also the fact of the matter is that when you get into these rounds of playoffs, it's even more so than usual. Like if you were a 2 versus a 7 or a 1 versus an 8, you're really an underdog. But now
with the expansion,
it's even more so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some mixed feelings about the expansion. I just do. But again,
it's better than everybody making it.
It is.
Yeah,
Although I think that's
we're not that far away from that.
That's exactly it. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, it's that everybody gets a trophy situation.
But I think Columbian. Again, when you are, and I think that's absolutely right. You've got to put. It makes it a lot easier. I think the longer you let the game I was at last night. Elmwood and Delta. I mean, Delta hung around for a good portion of that.
You hear it all the time. You can't do that.
And the longer the team hangs around, now Elmwood was good enough to put them away and end up beating them by 3 touchdowns. But the longer you let a team hang around, the more confidence they get. You hear that from coaches all the time.
You hear it on broadcast all the time. And now you can't do that in the next level. You let a team hang around, sure, in the first round, you're able to, at the end of the game, you're able to push it down a little bit. But every round, these games get more closer and tighter and tighter. You do that in the next round, the next couple of rounds, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble come fourth quarter.
Yeah, and we'll talk about one team in the area who kind of had that happen to them last night, But to stay on this Tiffin Columbian team, when you look at the stats. I love looking at stats. I'm a stats guy.
Well, it's part of what we do.
Guy. It's media. That's a media thing.
And a fan.
Yeah, for sure. So, Damian Brockington finished this year as the SBC Lakes leading rusher. Had over 1,400 yards on the season. I think he had some 20 touchdowns or something, 17 touchdowns, something. Close to 20 touchdowns. Kid was remarkable. Over 7 yards a carry. And then you look at the passing game. Coming into this year, Braden Rogo assumes the starting position. It's his. Nobody. He doesn't have to share it with anybody this year. And we expected that ascent to the next level. And it took a couple weeks, but we really started to see that towards the middle part of the season, and then now towards the end of the season. Man, this passing game. They've had some guys go down. They've had, Jack Corper went down at one point. Brady Gooding went down at one point. But the consistency has been there from Braden Rogo from start to finish in this season. And when you look at it, he's just starting to get warmed up. This passing game really is starting to get warmed up now at the right time of year when you need to have both facets of your offense.
Oh, yeah.
And it's impressive to watch them kind of toy with defenses because, they're running out of this spread. They're running out of a pistol, shotgun look. But defenses have to respect both looks. They have to respect the pass and the run, and it just puts a defense in such a disadvantageous position.
Well, why not make the defense prepare all week long for as many different things as possible? So if you're a wishbone team, they got one thing to worry about. And you got a talented quarterback, like Rogo. I mean, what makes him good is that the kid works.
Yes.
It's not just an in-season thing. My son plays summer baseball with him, with the brothers, and he's misses a lot of summer baseball because he's working on football. Yeah. I mean, football is that's his thing. Both of the Rogo boys, football is their thing, and you can't get to the level they're seeming to be getting to without putting in the work. And why not have it all clicking right now? Yeah. Why not have it all click? Because I know what you were saying early on in the year, it seemed like, a couple picks early on and maybe just not the numbers you're thinking. But then you started seeing it coming along middle of the year. And right now, if you're going to be clicking, why not do it right now? And I mean, you got the running game like they have. I mean, this just makes the defense so difficult to play. And especially, you're asking a lot out of high school kids to defend all that kind of stuff that Columbian offense can put out there on the field.
And they got a nice big offensive line to protect and lead the way.
That's where it all starts.
So, I mean, that's really, you're absolutely right. It starts in the trenches. You have to control the line of scrimmage in the playoffs. That's the most important thing.
You got the best quarterback in the state, but if he's on his back, it don't matter.
That's right. Absolutely. Now, Zach, you've covered this team, through the years.
Well, yeah, because
We've
I remember
seen
all
the dark
these last
years.
names. I remember all the last names.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brockington, Corporate. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember the. Oh, wait, they're younger brothers.
That's younger brothers.
Yeah.
Well, I went to school with some of the dads, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But no, you've seen this team throughout the years. We've been through the dark years with this team. We've been through some really fun times with this team. they made a state semifinal appearance a couple years ago. This looks like a team right now that they're locked in, and their mission. We talked with Braden Rogo last night on the post game when he was our player of the game. And he said, yeah, that's their mission, is to get back there, but not just get back there, but that's the standard that they set back then in 2020. That Coach Lutz looked at them all after that game and said, this is the standard now. This is where we're at. This is what we expect to get back to every year. Last year, they fell just a little short of that. Now this year, it looks like they are right back where they want to be, and they look to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in this region. I see this team possibly making a deep playoff run. What do you see, Zach?
Yeah, I would think so. I think, again, when you talk about how many different ways that this team can hit you offensively, but I think also what tends to get overlooked is, if the defense is consistent. Yeah. And if you have a consistent defense, if they're able to come out and really make it so that you want to put pressure on the other team's offense. This idea that we're not going to score a lot of points, so every possession means something, every play means something. Columbian, if you look at what they've done this year with the number of points that they've allowed, they kind of put that pressure on the opponent. And Judd, Judd, I think, is all about whether you're talking about offense or defense. Judd's a guy who, is all about creating a pressure atmosphere. I always felt when he was the coach, even when they were going through the rough years, he created an atmosphere where other teams. It was very rare that a team would feel comfortable playing Columbian. Yeah. No matter what Columbian's record was, I think you felt that pressure when you went into Frost Callendale Stadium, or even when they would go to Bellevue, and they would go to Clyde or wherever. They put that pressure on you, and I think that the other teams feel that. That's partially how your defense plays. It's the defense that creates that, because so many times in sports, it's like, okay, they score, we score. Well, you know what? You're not going to score against this defense every time. Right. And it puts more pressure on that offense, and I think that's what we see with Judd. That's been the one consistent since they got good way back in, I think it was 18, I think was the year that they really turned it around. And since they got good, it's like, yeah, they are a team that when you come in, you're not going to get a lot off this defense. And that's going to be that's a thing. I mean, if you have a poor defense and a good offense, it's easier to face that because we'll just keep scoring with them. Yep. You can't score with Columbia, and that makes it harder. Yeah, and when that defense is playing like they were last night, that's a tough team to beat. I mean, that's just the way it is. There was a few other teams in action last night. I know the one game that I wanted to talk about with you guys, I wasn't there, and I don't think anybody got to see it other than the people that were there because they weren't able to stream it. To my understanding, there was some people commenting on our stream asking how they could watch this game, but Hopewell Loudon and Seneca East over there in Bascom. This one was a little closer than I think some people might have thought, but I was not one of those people. I thought Seneca East had a really good chance at this one. I thought they played a lot of close games all year. They've had, I think, 5 wins in the last 3 minutes of the game. Most of those were comeback wins. They've dealt with a lot of adversity this year as far as, different game situations. So when I saw this game on paper, I thought, Seneca East might actually have a chance. If they keep this close, if they keep it close going into the fourth quarter, it's anybody's game. But if Hopewell gets out to an early start and they get up big, they could put this one away. But I think I was one of those people that, as I'm watching the score stream and it's game's staying close, it's staying like an 11-point game, 15, 16-point game, I thought Seneca East might actually have a chance to pull this one off at the end here. Former MAL opponents. Yes. Former league opponents from back in the day. Yeah. And so I'm watching this, and I'm on score stream, obviously, and I'm hoping that this turns out to be some kind of a game. Hopewell put them away at the end. Yeah. They did what they had to. They were up, I think, 25-8 at one point, and then just kind of shut it down the rest of the way. So they took care of business. But as you said earlier, Russ, you can't let a team hang in there. You can't let those teams stick around or hang around there. And I felt like that's kind of what Hopewell Loudon did last night. We're kind of developing a theme here as we're talking about the opening round of the playoffs of high school. And we mentioned those are former league opponents. And, if you're a kid on Seneca East and you get the draw of a Hopewell Loudon, who they're just down the road, but you don't see them as much as maybe you used to,
Well, it maybe brings out the best in you a little bit because hey, why not us go over there and knock those guys off? They've been good the last few years, maybe not as good this year as what they have been recently. Why not us go over there and throw a few haymakers and see how they respond? And that's for sure. It's what Seneca East did. That's what kept them close. But you would expect maybe the Hopewell Loudon to stretch that out at the end. But like I said, we're developing a theme here, and if you want to make a run like we feel some of our local teams can, that theme needs to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, you got any thoughts on that game?
Well, I think just the fact that it was impressive that Seneca East was able to keep that as close as they were until late. I mean, that was and also to hold Hopewell Loudon's offense. Hopewell Loudon, now last year when they were a D7, I'm going to get back in my time machine here. They were able to knock off teams that like Mohawk and really just suffocate them defensively. See, and that's the common denominator. I don't know if they're as strong offensively, but they're kind of like an anaconda. I mean, I remember somebody talking about Bill Belichick's defense, and he said, the thing is, he's like, the harder you play, the harder it gets. It's like the harder you work at it, the tougher it gets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is with Kodge and that defense when it's working. I think the big question that I have is, as playoffs go on, is the offense going to be enough for Hopewell Loudon to distance itself against teams? Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, Seneca East, this was a team that lived on the edges all year. Now, I don't know that I'd ever seen a team win on the last play of the game in back-to-back weeks. And we're not talking about a field goal. We're talking about touchdown
at any
last play. You just don't see that.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, as long as that game was close, and we talked about this earlier, the confidence, because Seneca East has been there before. They've done this before.
Yeah.
And knowing Ed Phillips the way that I do, he's not a guy who's going to let his kids go into any situation and think that they can't do it.
No.
And, that's the reason that they win those close games is because of the confidence they've developed and the confidence that he and his staff have instilled in those kids.
Great point.
And I think we saw that on Friday night. But I think the other thing that we talked about, as we talked about Elmwood, the same thing. It's like eventually the talent does win out. It's a little bit different when you're playing, Mohawk this year, which is who they pulled the big win off against what Hopewell is this year. And so Hopewell's talent, I think, eventually created that distance that they needed to pull away.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hopewell will move on. I think they face, I thought I saw, let's see, what did I saved the picture of it here. Let me see here. They face the Columbia Raiders out of Lorain County, who are 11-0. That's going to be a tough matchup.
Are we to neutral sites now, or are we still home?
No,
higher
still,
seed?
it's the first two rounds are
First
home
two.
for the
They
higher seed.
They made it 2 when they expanded the playoffs,
Yes.
right? That's right.
So Tiffin Columbian will be at home next week. They'll face Padua Franciscan. The Bruins. Then you have, let's see.
Sad. I hear these names. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
I mean, like I've heard of these schools. Obviously, a lot of them are towards the Cleveland area, which is where I grew up. But I'm not used to, like, I grew up in North Olmsted, which is about 15 minutes from Rocky River. So it's like, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, really?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And I mean, it's kind of weird, but these schools that you're playing now, it is interesting about how you also get, how many teams do we have this week where you probably had a good idea about what you were getting, or you had seen these kids before, or you'd seen they had common opponents. We're getting to that point now. There are no common opponents.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
And
You got to scramble to find film.
Right. And I think,
True.
and what's film going to really tell you, as opposed to like what you can see when you're going out like.
Absolutely nothing if you're trying to watch Perkins.
Yep.
No, just-
They got it again last night. I mean, this is one of those things too, where I think also you rely a lot on your own players, and I think we talk about scouting and all that stuff, but the reality is, how many coaches, and I'm sure they've told you this, and they've probably told you after games for Tiffin, we got to worry about us.
That's what they tell me every week before the game. It's not about what they're doing. If we go out and do our job and take care of our business, everything should fall in place.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's about execution, and you can execute. And I think it's also the thing that's so important, and we see it every football game is defensive discipline.
Yeah.
I see that now. I sound like Gary Goff, being assignment sound. Like I've got.
You know where he's at now, right?
Oh yeah,
McNeese.
McNeese State.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, no, and one of my favorites, Gary Goff.
His first game is my first game at Tiffin.
And for him, I mean, you talk about turnarounds. He kind of was able to do. We've seen that so many times in this area, whether it was Mike Howard at Heidelberg, Gary Goff at Tiffin, Judd Lutz taking an
We're becoming
0-10
jaded.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Tiffin's not going to make the playoffs this year, and I'm very disappointed. It wasn't that long ago I was doing 0-11 seasons.
Yes.
So.
Well, and I think, and just 3 years ago that they were almost into the second round of the playoffs.
Yep.
With so it does, and I think that we've seen these turnarounds, and it's so it's. But you talk about it, and I think the one thing that you see, the one thing that teams are usually able to do, the deeper they get, how disciplined are you on defense?
Yeah.
When because here's the thing, and we learned this. You got to have 11 guys doing their job. And
Yeah.
if one guy, this is people
That's
say,
all
well,
it takes.
they say the defense is bad. Well, actually, one guy just forgot his assignment.
Yep.
I remember all the way back when Dave Walkowski was the coach at Tiffin, and he said to me, he's like, these guys, it was going so bad, they want to freelance. They want to do what they're not supposed to do. It's like when you teach them to do what they're doing, what the assignment says, oh, look, that worked. Well, these teams right now, I mean, you're here because you're all on the same page.
Right.
That's right.
That's why you're where you're at.
That's right. That's a
That all
great
comes,
point.
that comes from coaching, too.
Yep.
That is all a reflection of the coaching.
And that's why you usually see a lot of the same faces when it comes to coaches at certain levels of the playoffs.
Right.
Sometimes not the
There's
same
some-
teams, but the same.
Yeah,
same
that's right.
coaches.
There's
yeah.
patterns there.
Right.
One coach you're starting to see more consistently in the upper rounds of the playoffs, Jonathan Mershman and the Cary Blue Devils.
Right.
They took care of business last night, and as did Colonel Crawford. And now these two teams will match up
Colonel
once
Crawford
again.
beat Margaretta, I believe, last night. Yeah.
Big time. Cary beat Riverdale 49-6, and then Colonel Crawford over Margaretta 49-14.
Here's my question about Cary, Colonel Crawford. Which team you think is hungrier? Because Cary was only challenged one time, only a couple times during the regular season against Upper Sandusky, which is a D4 school,
And they got hammered last night.
and they got hammered last night by Clear Fork. And then you've got. But then you've got Colonel Crawford, which feels like they probably should have won that game. Who comes into that game a little bit hungrier?
That's a
I
tough
think
call.
they're both probably. I mean, Cary won the game, but knowing Mershman and how that attitude that team has, I bet that they feel like they left some points on the table. They left some meat on the bone.
Still a little bit to prove.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Well,
That'd
and
be an interesting one.
if you're Colonel Crawford, you got to feel the same way. Like you left an opportunity on the table. You left a chance to knock off that perennial, that the 20-some game winning streak. Now I think it's 28
amazing.
games or something. You talk about that model of consistency that they've created over there at Cary, and Colonel Crawford is right there with them every year in the N10. Those are the two teams that are vying for that top spot in the N10. So you got to think that those Colonel Crawford Eagles, they got to be going for that top spot, and they got to be thinking, all right, second time's a charm here. We got
Well,
this.
if you're Cary, you say, why don't you guys just keep worrying about basketball?
Yes.
You guys have been really good in basketball lately. Let us have a little bit of the
Yes.
football stuff.
Oh, I think also though that you look at this game and Cary, again Cary got Riverdale, and Riverdale had a great year. They'd really been struggling. They finally made the playoffs for the first time in a very long time. They'd only made the playoffs once before, and so Cary came in with a distinct advantage in that game. And
Right.
Riverdale in the BVC, they got some of their wins against some of the lower half of the BVC. So then you're playing Cary, who is the defending state champion. So I don't know. I mean, they did what they were supposed to do last night, obviously, against Riverdale, but I think everyone kind of expected that. This is really a jump to go from Riverdale to Colonel
Right.
Crawford.
Exactly.
And, like you said, I think it makes it a little bit more interesting when a team plays someone for the second time, how that kind of goes. I mean, I don't know that you can expect that it's going to go exactly like, I'll put it this way. I do not expect there to be 10 points scored in this game.
Right.
I expect there to be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And is this where the biggest jump comes from the level of competition in the playoffs from the first round to the second round because of the expansion?
I probably.
I would think.
I used to always think it was second round to third round. That's where I always felt like that was the biggest jump.
But with the expansion,
Yeah,
it
Now
feels
it's
like
such
this
a
is
disparity
Yeah.
between the top and the bottom
Yeah.
of those first
because
rounds.
now you could be playing a 13 seed. Now you're playing a 7 seed or something
Yeah.
like that.
You
Yeah.
will, and I think it really depends on how good it depends on how good the region is.
Exactly.
I think regions are different.
Yeah.
I think that like when Clyde, and I always go back to this. I mean, Clyde was the third or fourth best team, and it's in the SBC the year it won the state title. One of the things that helped them was they weren't in the strongest region. Mm-hmm. They got through that region, and taking nothing away from that title, that was terrific. But they played a tougher schedule in the regular season than they did in the
In the
postseason.
region.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you've got a few area teams still in the running. Obviously, I think Bellevue and Clyde both took
Both
care of
won
business
big
last
Yep.
night.
Both won big.
Clyde, I think, was they scored over 40 points in their game. Bellevue beat Galleon. I think it was like 28-6 or 26-8 or something
It's
like
comfortable.
that.
win,
It's 40-9. It says
Oh,
Well, you're right there, Nate.
for which one?
for Bellevue and Galleon, 40-9.
Okay, yeah, right on. Right on.
Clyde was 63-35 over Violence.
Well,
The disembodied voice comes in with the answer here.
I think those were the scores when I
The man
stopped
behind the
paying
curtain.
attention. Because I think that's when we went off the air. I'm like looking at the scores and just kind of.
that's.
Well, you don't have to qualify it, Nate. You messed up. It's all good, man.
That's
Move
all right.
on.
Hey, we each have a mess up other than Russ.
Yeah, I've got it.
Don't
Russ
worry. I
doesn't
got
mess
2
anything
games
up.
broadcast today. I got plenty of mess
You
ups
don't
in front
mess
of me.
anything up. We know better. So that's pretty much it for high school football.
Congratulations
We know
to
the
everybody.
matchups.
Congratulations to everybody that's moving on and the teams that got to this point.
Yes.
You got to put in the work even if you want to get a chance to compete in the postseason. So congratulations to everybody that got there. And the teams that are moving on, local teams, man, go get it.
That's
Go
right.
give Nate something to do this before basketball and everything gets going.
I would love nothing more than a deep football playoff.
There's
run.
nothing more fun. I mean, you got to experience it. I mean, you had lightning in a bottle with baseball last year, with you starting all this, and just getting on those runs, especially when you know kids. I mean, as broadcasters, we can go work a game here, there, everywhere, and it's going to be a good game. But when you get a good game and you know the kids, you know the
Yes.
background, you know the families, it's awesome.
It really is. And, we went on a couple magical runs over the years in football. We followed the Seneca East Tigers back in, I think it was like 2016, 17? I don't know. Somewhere around in there. It was a fun ride with those Tigers when they went to the state semifinals and got beat by Marion Local. But they had a couple of fun wins, key wins, come from behind wins in that run. And the same thing with Tiffin Columbian a couple of years ago with that 2020 semifinal playoff run for them.
And then even last year with Hopewell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've had some fun times covering these different schools.
We've got good quality athletics around here.
That's right.
And the other thing is, I think also with every passing week, the stage gets a little bit bigger. Especially from the second week to the third week, especially when you start to get into the neutral sites.
Yeah.
The stage gets a little bit bigger. Everything feels a little bit more important. I think that those are the fun moments. When you get someplace and there are a lot of broad. Like sometimes I go in, I'm like, oh God, there's 6 radio stations.
That's a blast.
It's like radio station from Salina. Okay, like things like that.
I got 15 color commentators behind me
Yeah.
leading into my microphone.
Everybody's saying
fun.
everybody's saying the same thing at the same
Yep.
time. But no, the point is, it does the pressure gets raised. Everybody gets a little excited, and there's a feeling in the air from the moment you step out of the car and walk to your spot. It's an exciting thing, and everybody's a part of that. And it is exciting. For me, since they did expand it, it's up until we get to week 3. That's when it really gets exciting because you get into those neutral sites.
Yep.
You get to go places maybe you haven't been.
Right, you got to start planning your travel
And you get into the really nice hospitality.
I'll tell you.
When you start getting
I'll
to
tell you
round
what. That's
3.
one good thing about working college athletics. The hospitality was at Ashland last week, and you want to talk about a facility.
Elmwood last night. I mean, the sub sandwiches that they served, those were special.
My first game I ever did for Tiffin University was at the Hall of Fame Stadium, and there was a prime rib buffet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Prime rib buffet.
Oh,
my first
my
game, I'm like, this is how it
goodness.
works.
That was
and then after that, it was
man.
it was amazing.
That was.
They set the bar pretty high.
Is that James Capella as the starting quarterback?
Oh, James Capella.
Was that the name?
I don't remember if that was the James Capella days. People don't know James Capella. He was a quarterback who was Mr. Football in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Went to Iowa State, transferred to TU, and actually skipped a game once and was seen out riding his crotch rocket to Clover Club, and then was in the Clover Club while the game was going on. And then that was his last game at Tiffin.
Well, I'm just upset.
That is a Johnny Manziel story if I've ever heard one.
I'm just.
Yeah, he was. We called him the D2 Manziel.
I just remember
great.
being upset because he played very well in that game against Wall.
Yes.
And
We
Tiffin,
need to get this guy on for an
He was like
interview.
5'8", 175
Tiffin was
pounds.
in-
Have him on for a podcast one time. I think that'd be fun.
Tiffin was they were. I was at that game too at Tom Benson. What now is Tom Benson Stadium, and I had my headline all worked out. Dragons are singing a cappella. I had that all set, and they lost that game. And I don't think they won a game. They didn't win a game that year.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was they.
I don't know how we got to James Capella, but here we go.
It's circled back around.
I just remember, but I mean, like
We'll talk about anything and everything with Zach
Why
on.
not?
I'm telling you.
yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, it's like that was one of those moments. Even though that was a game and I was there last year for Carey, and we were so far up in the press box that it was like watching all 22.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because you could actually see the plays develop before they, it's like you could see it happen before it happened. It was wonderful.
Yeah. That's a different kind of atmosphere, different experience.
That's my favorite place I've ever worked.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens. We wanted to cover the Carey game last year, but we were shut out, and I'm hoping that maybe one of these teams gives us a fun ride there again this year.
It's no longer in Walsh and Malone both have their own facility. Malone dropped football, and Walsh has their own facility. I got to do the first game at their new facility this year to open up the season.
No kidding.
It's not bad. It's about what you'd expect. I mean, it looks like it really looks more like it was made for like soccer lacrosse. But when you're a school like a Walsh and you can throw Tiffin into that, and when you build your own stadium, do you want something that's too big? Yeah. You know how many people you're going to get. Rather something more intimate. And for them, it's perfect. Although visitor radio the first time I was outside. It was a little strange for my first.
I have memories of going to Ball State playing BG back in college outside.
Oh yeah,
we're on a little table, So
There's schools in the D2 that'll put you outside.
That's one
it's
thing.
Like going to Mohawk and covering a game.
That's one thing. Every broadcaster and every writer has stories like that.
Oh yeah.
They went that was. You're in the corner somewhere.
I was up on a hay wagon.
There's a podcast idea for you, Nate.
I was up on a hay wagon.
No.
Macomb put us outside in the rain with no power.
Media, but I had to take it down.
Yeah. I'm already playing. I'm going to Macomb next week because they got Pandora. So I'm going to Macomb, and I'll be on the sidelines for that. So I'm hoping for some unseasonable. I think it should be warm. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think the weather's supposed to be like 70s next week.
Next weekend should be nice.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to see real football weather? I feel like last night was the closest you could get to real football weather.
We get some football weather like on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but it doesn't do us any good.
2 weeks ago,
I'm fine with it.
2 weeks ago was pretty cool on Friday night. I remember that.
Hey, if you got to try to think back to find the bad weather, what a great year we had.
We've been spoiled this year.
The only thing I worry about is lightning. I feel like we can handle anything else.
Right.
I was going to say, we did not have a
Well, you say that because you don't have gear outside.
Yeah.
Us guys who got gear outside, we don't want anything.
Don't jinx it.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying that like lightning can actually delay games, and that lightning is the thing.
Every time you see it, 30 minutes.
Yeah, and
now it's thunder too.
Yes.
If they hear thunder, they can go another 30 minutes.
That's the thing. I mean, I've seen times where it's like lightning. Did anybody see that? No, that was probably not lightning.
Never said shh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's over there in Fostoria. We're fine.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's miles away.
We just didn't all see that.
But that didn't happen this year. I don't think that I saw any lightning. Or we didn't have any.
Knock on wood, I had not had any blaze in mine either.
We've had a great season so far.
Weather-wise, fantastic.
College football.
Yeah.
What do we got on the docket today for Tiffin University? Who are we playing?
Well, today we have the Northwood Timberwolves in the town. It's a team, Northwood in Midland, Michigan. If you've never been to their campus, it's actually really cool. Like when you pull into the campus, it looks like you're pulling into a state park.
Really?
Big, huge trees, and it's a beautiful, beautiful campus. Former conference opponent when the Dragons were in the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the GLIAC, and when you look at the GLIAC, thank goodness we're not in that this year. They're freaking amazing. But Northwood started out the year 2-0, lost 6 straight. Quarterback has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns this year. And we're a 500 club. We're 4-3. I mean, you could take our 3 losses. We've lost to Indianapolis, who's ranked in the top 15. We lost to Northwood, who's ranked in the top 20, and we lost to Ashland, who's ranked 6th. Our 3 losses, those 3 teams have 2 combined losses, and we lost one of them in overtime, won by 6 points. In the Indianapolis and the other one, which one I said, Truman State, we had double-digit leads in the fourth quarter and lost those games. Now, Ashland last week was, number 6 team in the country. I don't know if they're the number 6 team in the country, but they beat us 28-20. They're a good football team. They were leading the country in defense, only giving up less like 6.5 points a game, and we got 20 on them. Well, although our starting tailback did not play in the second half, Darius Penix, he's a Coastal Carolina transfer.
Yeah.
He was leading the conference in rushing, and last week he had like 14 yards before he got hurt. But if you guys follow Tiffin University football, we had Antonio Pipkin at quarterback, who's playing in the CFL right now. And then we had Nick Watson, who was a statistical leader who passed many of Antonio's marks. And now we have Christian Carter, who's came in. He's a transfer from Merrimack College. And he was the freshman of the year in the NE10 when he played there. And the kid is fantastic. I mean, we got Division I transfers. We got Riley Keller. Remember him? Played at Toledo Whitmer, went to BG. He's a transfer. He's a 4-year starter at Whitmer. He can't get on the field with us right now.
Wow.
So we have our backup is a Western Kentucky transfer.
Okay.
But we should win big this week. Then the following week we go to Kentucky Wesleyan, and then we come back home for Findlay to close things out. But a little disappointing that we're 4-3 right now. 4:00 kickoff over at Frost County now this afternoon. Did you get all my stuff set up last night before you left? So
I actually, there's a couple things you still got to do.
Okay, but
for the most part,
okay, cool, perfect. Thank you.
You're
Because we got volleyball on campus at 11 a.m. and then football at 4:00.
Yeah, we got to get wrapped up here pretty soon. You got to get out.
I know I got to get out of here at 10 o'clock. But Coach Chris Reisert's done a great job at Tiffin University in his 3rd year now with the Dragons. He's won the conference 2 of the 3 years he's been there. Former quarterback at Ohio Dominican, played at Cincinnati Moeller. He's in Ohio Dominican's Hall of Fame. He's just a really good guy. His family has really bought into Tiffin University. They're really enjoying being here and being part of the community. And I think he's got an opportunity to do some really, really good things. And Zach mentioned Gary Goff earlier, and we wouldn't have Chris Reisert if Gary Goff wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Gary Goff did some amazing things at TU, and he moved on to his alma mater, Valdosta State, got him to the national championship game, and then McNeese State comes and gives him a 7-figure contract, and he's got like a 6-year deal where they're playing at LSU for like the next 6 years. So his athletic budget for football is going to be through the roof, and he's going to be doing some really, really cool things down. And his son is a phenomenal high school quarterback as well. So if they were still up here,
he's a high school kid already.
He's a high school kid already.
Wow.
Zach trying to make us both feel old, buddy. But Zach knows as well as I do the impact that Gary had when he was here, and Coach Chris Reiser seems to be just taking that and moving forward. I was
always impressed that he came up here with the climate. I mean, he's
a Louisiana guy.
Yeah, he's a New Orleans Saints fan, and he was one of the things about that was that, and we've talked about this with guys who turn it around. I don't know that anybody really thought that. I'm sure there were people who thought that Tiffin couldn't be turned around.
Oh yeah,
and
well, you mentioned Wilkowski.
Yeah.
Gary kicked 48 kids off the team his first year.
Yeah, I remember.
It was those were the.
I remember.
You talk about the dark days. Mm-hmm. I mean, those were. It was just a very, very difficult time. I mean, there's nothing. When a team doesn't win a game.
My first 2 years with Gary, we went 0-11.
Yeah, and so.
Ouch. And travel on 16-hour bus trips to the Upper Peninsula.
Well, you talked about going to Northwood. I mean, like they had when they first got to the GLIAC, they had to go up to play Northern Michigan
and Michigan Tech.
Michigan Tech, which are in the Upper Peninsula.
So if this is Michigan and here's the Upper Peninsula, Michigan Tech's in the middle. Northern Michigan is actually closer to Wisconsin.
Wow!
Like when you get over the bridge to go to Michigan Tech, when you get over the bridge, you're halfway. You're halfway there, and then it's 55, highway all the way. Well, but Northern Michigan, you want to check out an amazing facility. Search out their dome. They have a football dome that was built by the United States Olympic Committee as a boxing and cross-country skiing training facility right on the shores of Lake Superior. It's amazing. Just search out, Northern Michigan University's football stadium. And today is my 128th consecutive Tiffin University football game.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Consecutive. I like that.
128 consecutive. Since 2011, I haven't missed a game.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
And my record is still below 500, and we've been winning the last few years.
You've been through some dark days.
Have been. But both the universities. We're lucky in Tiffin. We got 2 high schools and the surrounding high schools that are consistently competitive. Now we got 2 universities that are putting out great products on the football field as well as across all the athletic fields. I mean, my schedule right now, I am scheduled to do 130 Tiffin University broadcasts this school year.
Wow.
So
busy guy.
But most of it's quality.
Do you have to do the esports too?
I don't do esports. That's all taken care of through Twitch, but I still do stuff like stunt. We don't have swimming and diving anymore. Don't have to do that anymore. But everything from stunt, women's wrestling. We're celebrating. We had a women's wrestler who was a national champion last year at 101 pounds. We're celebrating her today at the football game. She was 0.1 pounds overweight. Well, at weigh-in, cut her hair. Cut her hair to make weight and went out and won a national championship.
That's sacrifice right there.
Isn't that awesome?
That's what we love to hear. That's the kind of
stories. Yeah, national champions coming from schools like Tiffin University and Heidelberg and things like that. It's amazing. The athletes that we get to come to that choose to come to Tiffin to take on the debt sometimes that is required to become a college. I mean, people talk about townies and this and that. I always tell them, you know what, my parents put me here. You're paying $30,000-$40,000 a year to come to Tiffin, but thank God they are. Imagine where Tiffin would be without Heidelberg and TU. And then these athletes will wear Tiffin on their chest and then go move back home to Arizona or wherever they go, and they're wearing TU stuff or wearing their Heidelberg stuff. I mean, it's awesome. It's super cool.
It is really cool. We are spoiled in a sense when you think about the fact that this small town in rural Tiffin, Ohio, has 2 high school football teams, 2 college football, 2
NCAA, not a JUCO. Yeah.
2 universities that any town would kill to have.
We got over 5,000 kids coming to Tiffin to continue their education every year. Exactly. Over 5,000 kids are coming here, spending money.
So we are spoiled when it comes to sports media.
And they're going on winning games and giving us fun stuff to cover, too, even better.
Fall, winter, spring sports, it's all a blast. And like I said, we've got a lot of talent in this area and I would say a lot of tradition in this area. You talk about, obviously, Tiffin University's been through some dark years, but there is some tradition there.
We're building. Some of our athletics have, like our track and field, have an amazing tradition of excellence. And now, our football team is building that tradition. Basketball's trying to get back to it. Baseball's been a perennial power in Division II the last couple of years as well. So some of those, you mentioned, there is a tradition there, but the other ones are trying to find it, and they're trying to grab it, and they're trying to build it for the Dragons to come.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of tradition, a lot of story with all of these different organizations, these different, the universities and the 2 high schools. And we should be proud.
Right.
I'm proud to say I'm from Tiffin, Ohio. I'm proud when I talk to people when we're out of town. I mention this town, and a lot of people, oh yeah, you guys got a couple colleges there. Isn't that where Heidelberg's at? Or that's where Tiffin University's at. Like we get a little bit of recognition, and it's nice.
Right.
So
does anybody like Zach besides Capello stick out to you as one of your favorite collegiate athletes to come to Tiffin and compete that you covered?
Hargraves for track and field. That guy was really, really special. Mandy Jabe. For the women's basketball team, she was one of my favorites. Great person. She was like a pinball. She kind of stood out, and I just loved watching her play basketball. Pipkin was another guy that I just really enjoyed, and Charles Holland, and those guys were.
Well, Pipkin was a guy who changed the entire landscape of athletics at Tiffin University.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He tried to play basketball too until he was a little bit too aggressive, and it took like 5 minutes on the floor for the entire league to know that when Pipkin's out there, you better be ready to call it like a football game.
Well, he was a guy. Yeah, I mean, you brought him in, and I think the other thing is that he wasn't a transfer. I mean, they got him right away, so he and the program kind of built together.
He had offers from every MAC school to come there to play football, but he wanted to play football and basketball. And after 1 year of basketball, I realized, no, I'm just going to play football. Now he's in the Canadian League and doing a good job.
Yeah. Heidelberg's in action today. They play Wilmington at Wilmington at 1:30. They're 5-2 on the year.
Right. Doing some good things, man. They got real good, solid defense over there. You've had a chance to cover them, I believe, right?
Yes. I've covered, I believe, 3 out of their 4 home games this year. They've got one more home game next weekend. We'll be there for that one as well.
Right.
But this is a team that when they came into this year, they had so many returning starters, so much experience, and a lot of expectations.
Right.
And I think, for some people, not within the program, but people outside the program, they've fallen short of those expectations. But I think within the program, this is a tough schedule. You talk about the OHSAA. Every year, there's 2 teams that are vying for that top spot, and then there's everybody else.
Right.
And that's no offense to Heidelberg. That's no offense to, Wilmington or Marietta or any of these other schools.
Wilmington.
Ohio Northern, any of them, any of those schools.
It's hard in Division III.
It is.
That's the hardest level to be consistent in.
And
unless you're
is like, I mean,
exactly. Well,
having to
across
compete
the board,
against Mount and John Carroll every
baseball
year.
had 2. Baseball, the OAC put 2 teams in the Division III World Series last year. So it's not just football, but you're absolutely right. Mount Union's always there, and then you figure like John Carroll is going to be there, But yeah, it's Division III. It is so difficult to maintain consistency with winning. And then you mentioned, the expectations. okay, so you think that maybe we have fallen a little short of them? At least we have expectations.
Exactly.
It's better to have expectations than not have them.
And that's the one thing that I wanted to kind of mention is, this is a team that for so long, there were no expectations. There was no,
People would take note, Heidelberg's 3-1. Oh,
Yeah.
check them out. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and that's the thing too. Is like when you talk about Heidelberg or anything like that, and then when I talk about Wilmington or a school like that struggled, all it says is it can be done.
Exactly.
Heidelberg did it, and I think that Wilmington, Brian Moore, who was the offensive coordinator at Heidelberg for a number of years, he was in charge of Wilmington for a while. He made them very competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, so it can be done. It's just but it is so hard to maintain. I mean. We talk about the incredible job that Mike Hallett did at Heidelberg, but they made the playoffs one year, and then John Carroll came up. It's like and it was suddenly they were not only competing. You're competing and you're thinking there's Mount Union and there's Heidelberg. Well, within a year, John Carroll was at that level too, and now their defensive coordinator is the head coach of the Chargers. So stuff just tends to bubble up, and I think the level of competition, the level of football in the GLIAC, in the OAC.
It is really good in the GLIAC, too.
It is. And Ferris State's incredible.
Grand Valley beat them, though. They're number 1 now.
Yeah. So there's the level of play is incredible. And I think also what's changed, too, don't you realize, and I think, Russ was talking about this. I mean, you realize how good of an athlete you have to be to play small college sports.
Yeah.
These kids are the best players in their high school, and it's an adjustment for kids when they come to college because they've been the best their whole life. And going to D2, I'm going to be a star. If you go into D2 thinking you're going to be a star, it's going to be a problem because you're playing some really top quality.
And the transfer portal has changed everything. It really has.
Greg, did you happen to get that video from Russ?
No,
It's not in the drive. It's actually in the email. If you want to check our email, it is in there. I just checked a minute ago. Before we'll get to that here in just a minute, but we have our Champs Cut of the Week segment we'll get to as well. I want to make sure we get to those before we go off the air. But, you've got – it's 10 o'clock, Russ. I don't want to keep you any longer than you need.
I got 5 minutes.
All right. That's about how much
I got an 11 o'clock
we
start
need here. So
on volleyball.
It's telling me here that I need access to get to that email.
Oh,
do I need to
cool.
respond to you?
Yeah.
So you got Heidelberg facing Wilmington today. We'll be covering the game next week as once again they're back at home as they take on Baldwin Wallace. That is senior day, obviously last home game of the year. They've got a lot of seniors, a lot of guys that have been here for 5-6 years. I mean, you talk about the COVID rule kind of changing things.
Oh, golly.
It really led to Heidelberg having this, the expectations were there for a reason because they had so many guys coming back. But when you think about it, they weren't the only team in the OAC that had that situation. Everybody has that same situation. So
I've seen 25-year-old quarterbacks the last 2 years. Last year we played at Indianapolis. Their quarterback was older than all the starting quarterbacks in the AFC East. He was like 2 months older than Josh Allen. That tells you right there.
Unreal.
What the transfer portal and everything does. The transfer portal, the COVID year, the red shirts, the medical heart. I mean, all of them add up. You got a military thing or a religious thing. It all adds up. But yeah, I'm seeing 24, 25, even 26-year-old quarterbacks, football players at collegiate level right now.
Wow, that's just unreal. But that is the biggest reason for the expectations is they brought back all those all OAC players, a couple of All-Americans. They had a lot of expectations, but I think within the program, they've played close with both of those tough losses. In both of those losses, they were tough losses. Neither one of those losses were, blowout losses. I mean, even the game against Mount 28-6, you hold a team like Mount Union at 28 points.
Oh,
you got to have one hell of a defense.
Oh, Mount Union beats everybody up, usually worse than that. And it's, like I said, it's difficult at the Division III level to maintain the consistency. And the fact that you can at least stay in the upper half of your conference on say over a 5-year run, that is consistent. Because if you're up there, you're going to catch that lightning in a bottle situation every once in a while. And, I just like what they're doing over there. And you can't tell me that putting an on-campus facility did not help with their program tremendously. That's a huge step forward, and that's what we're missing more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, the one thing that really helped bring them to, you said the on-campus facility, you talk about the stadium?
Yes.
Yeah, it really did bring that whole campus together.
Oh, absolutely.
And they did such a great job of planning it out, where it was going to go.
For who they are, it's perfect.
It is absolutely perfect.
Yes.
And there's not a better setting for fall football when those leaves start turning. I mean, you see the backdrop behind the stadium, behind the field, not having visitor sidelines or visitors,
It seems
bleachers.
like OAC football, like it should be.
It's so awesome.
Well, you guys, now the facility is one thing, but I was there when they opened it, and I still remember the risers, like they had the risers and like the greenhouse effect, the greenhouse press boxes and all that stuff. It was a totally different thing, but it's great to see it have come as far as it has, and we've seen kind of the indoor facility at Tiffin's another one. I just think I got to see the GLIAC tournament there one year. It's fantastic for that kind of stuff. The indoor track, it was amazing.
Yep.
All right, Greg, where are we at on this? We think we're getting pretty close.
Yep, we're good.
All right, sweet. So first of all, Russ, you sent me a hype video.
Yeah, Kale Steneman of the Tiffin University football program does a great job with the video work, and he puts together the highlight reel for the team to watch from the previous week because they're having their breakfast, and he also puts together the hype video that he updated just this week.
Nice. So this is the updated hype video from Tiffin University. We'll go ahead and check that out now.
Buckle up, everybody. Buckle up. Towards the end zone over Jack Stoltz. He's got it. Greg is continuing to dominate every aspect of this football game. Carter steps up. Good packet over the middle pass. Caught at the 31-yard line. Third down play. Being hit. He's going to get dropped. Charlie Cleveland got him. Anthony Lowe, the return man for Tiffin. We know what he can do. Up middle of the field, 15-20. Here he comes. 25-30, 35-40. Bye-bye. Anthony Lowe. Goodness. Dragon defense was there and ready for him as Tiffin continues to be in control. Well, if you're looking for entertainment value in your college football, this is the place right now. Here comes the approach, and we are underway.
That was pretty sweet.
He does a great job, and the fact that he uses my calls, I absolutely love it. I sent him a text yesterday thanking him to make me sound a little cool. He said, no problem. That's what I do.
It don't take much to make you sound cool, man. Come on now.
Right.
Guy with the golden voice. All right, so we do have our Champs Cut of the Week segment as well. We're going to go ahead and segue into that now. Once again, Champs Barbershop, your place if you're trying to look good. I mean, don't just trust your looks to just anybody, guys. Go to the pros. Go to Champs. See Randy and his staff down there at Champs Barbershop. They'll treat you right. Once again, here is your Champs Cut of the Week segment.
Rogo sends a man in motion, sends Brockington. He's just going to throw it right over the middle of the Corper.
Setup right there. Corper on the run to the 5 and into the end zone. Touchdown, Tiffin Columbian. Rogo back to pass. Slings it down the field. He's got a man in the end zone. Touchdown, Tiffin Columbian. What a catch by Brady Gooding. Bomber pulls to his left.
Got some room.
Looking, slings it into the end zone, and it's going to be picked off. Intercepted in the end zone.
Great throw on the run by Schultz, too.
And it's going to be Herring. Touchdown, Seneca. Maybe a chance to toss it over top. That's exactly what they're going to do. Toss it over top of the defense. Klaus, good chance there. Herring takes, or it's Schultz. Touchdown, Schultz, his 8th of the season.
All right, and we're back. Hey, guys, what did you think about the Champs Cut of the Week segment there?
Awesome.
Some nice
Awesome.
highlights.
You know what?
Nice
You're going to win
job.
football games. There's going to be big plays, so
right.
it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's also really, really cool to see, like you were talking about, the contrast and the highlights. I mean, when we were growing up, you had to have videotape, like the videotape and the reel-to-reel, and this you make it look like it's NFL primetime. Kids,
Right.
NFL primetime was anyway. We don't have time. Okay.
One of the greatest shows ever on
Oh
television.
my God, best highlight show ever.
Right.
All right, so usually we talk about pro football, but I'm going to leave that to the guys on the Over Under podcast tomorrow morning. Fantasy
Go Bears.
Focus tomorrow morning. I'm not really that excited about pro football right now. So
I want to talk. I'm at this. I never thought this. It's October, and I'm excited about the Cavs. That's where
yes,
that's
let's
where
go
that's where I'm
Cavs.
at right now.
Absolutely.
Man, they're so fun to watch.
All over
it's
that.
It's like the Cavs
Man.
are the Cavs are the team, man. That's the team.
Yep.
Big win at Boston with some missing pieces too. That's awesome.
LeVert
Karis
and
LeVert goes for
Donovan
41.
Mitchell
You better
both
win that
went
game
for 41.
if Karis
That was
LeVert goes
nice.
for 41.
Yeah.
All right. So once again, I want to give a huge thank you to my special guest joining me in studio this morning, Russell Snyder of Tiffin University, Zach Baker of the Findlay Courier. I want to give also a huge shout out and a big thank you to the Wizard, the one and only Greg Kinn, keeping us live.
What's up, Greg?
I'm telling you, folks, the things that he's able to do. I can't do it, and I couldn't do what we're trying to do here without him. So once again, thanks to Greg Kinn. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you're watching, if you've made it this far, share the video. Like, follow, subscribe on all of our platforms. And if you really like what we're doing, consider supporting us on Patreon, $5 a month. Once again, thanks for tuning in here on Heart of Ohio Sports. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy some college football.